GBP hit by another week of bad EU-UK negotiations. Guys, as expected by most analysts, this week has been another week where negotiations between the EU and the UK didn't really get anywhere. Why? Same old things we've been saying for months now. Two sticking points really are stopping negotiations move forward. One is this concept of the level playing field. So that's basically where the EU fear that now the UK are independent, they're gonna, degrade their rules and regulations on environmental, employer protections, that kind of stuff, as a means of trying to get some kind of competitive advantage over the EU and attract business. So the EU want to stop that, but then the UK say, hang on a minute, we don't want to be forced to follow your rules because we're going to be an independent nation. So this debate is ongoing. There's also a fight going on over UK fishing areas. So obviously the UK, coastal nation, it's got a lot of waters which legally belong to the UK under international law, and there's a lot of fish in those waters. In the EU, all of the EU shares all of the EU's fish, basically. So we've always, in the UK, we've always shared that fish with the EU. However, now we're leaving the EU, we don't actually have to share any of that fish with them anymore. Obviously the EU, they've got a lot of fish, they've got a lot of their own fishers who really, their lives are dependent on being able to fish in UK waters. And their businesses are dependent, so they need to look out for their own fishermen. And obviously the UK government, we're trying to maximise the benefit for our own fishermen, so there's this debate going on as well. And guys, this is really, really key to remember. When you're doing negotiations, this is a rule for all negotiations, but particularly with the EU, things are often left until the last minute or the 11th hour. Why? Well, the EU is very divided. Because there's 27 different countries, that's just naturally the way it is. So often the only thing that can focus minds and get a compromise within the EU is when you have a really, really pressing time constraint. And that's often been the case in negotiations with the UK as well. When that clock is really, really close to running out, that is when progress is made. So what is the deadline that we're thinking about? We're thinking about the deadline at the end of June, because basically if an extension to the transition period, which ends at the end of the year, isn't agreed by the end of June, then basically there's no possibility that any extension can be agreed at all. So basically that is the deadline that we're dealing with. But the thing is, the UK, they're still saying they're not going to ask for an extension, or they're not going to accept an extension. So it's going to be an interesting one building up to this deadline. Can the two sides come together and agree something just to, keep the negotiations going? Or is the EU going to capitulate and ask and go back on what is said and ask for an extension? We don't know. If there is no progress and the UK asks for no extension, then this will be very, very bad for GBP. So expect a lot of volatility ahead. We will be all over this theme, of course, as we always are at Freak Network. That is pretty much it from me for now, and I will see you in the next one.